to episode 3 of my video podcast about my passion for yarn and knitting. My name is Ina and I'm coming to you from the midden part of Norway. I live here with my husband and my 3 children. So thank you for checking out my podcast if you're new, and thank you so much for coming back if you have watched before. I have now reached over 500 subscribers on YouTube, and that is pretty amazing. So thank you for all those very nice words. I got so many comments and messages saying just beautiful, nice things about my knitting and my podcast, and that has been great. I find it so wonderful to connect to other beautiful knitters around the world. So thank you for getting in touch and yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. So I can be found on the internet as Ina Pina. That is my Ravelry nickname and also my name on Instagram. So there's been 2 weeks since my last episode, and the days are just flying by, really. The kids are in school and in kindergarten. I'm at work, so is my husband, and a lot is happening after school and work as well, with different activities for the kids and myself and my husband, and yeah. So, but we are now in the middle of September and the weather is definitely starting to get colder, and that is perfect. So we got sweater weather now, and that is amazing. We also got the government election day yesterday, so there's been a lot of discussions and talk all over about the election. It was a pretty close race, but it seems like we are keeping the government for another 4 years. So, yeah. But this podcast will never be about politics or religion. Anyway, this last weekend I took my kids to the cinema and we watched the latest Despicable Me film. And that was amusing, both for my little one and for me, because he likes Minions a lot. And I like the 80s a lot, because I grew up in the 80s, and one of the characters, I would guess you can call him the anti-hero. He was like stuck in the 80s, so I got a good laugh throughout the film. So haven't you watched it already? I definitely can recommend the film Despicable Me 3. And I brought my knitting to the cinema as well. I am able to knit without looking if I got a good stockinette, straightforward knitting. So I got a couple of rounds, but I think I lost stitch here and there, and I had to do some repairing after the lights went on again. So I don't know if I got that much knitting done, but it's nice to have something in my hands while I watch something on TV or a good movie. So yeah, I have a lot to show you because I have been able to squeeze in quite a bit of knitting these last 2 weeks. So let's just jump in, shall we? So the first finished object today is my V-neck boxy. This was originally finished before the summer, and I had to rip back the bottom hem or ribbing to add some more length because it was way too cropped for my liking. And so I did. I added about 6 or 7 centimeters to the length, and now it's perfect. And I will pop in a picture of the sweater here so you can see what it looks like. And this sweater is knit out of Madeleine Tosh in Tosh Merino Light in the Great Grey Owl colorway. It's knit on 3.5mm needles, and it is knit top down, so it's no problem to adjust the length if needed. And I knit this in the size small. And as you can see on the pictures, it is definitely big enough for me. So, but I love it. It's so soft and the drape is just amazing, and it was exactly the way I wanted it to turn out. So, what else to say? I love it, and it is finished. I can now wear it, and yeah. I have though already seen some pilling under my arms especially, and of course because this is a single merino yarn, some pilling will occur. That's just the way it is, but hopefully it will stop pretty soon, and so I can just remove those pills in the beginning, and then it will be fine. My second finished object is the Selbu mittens. And these are the first pair of Selbu mittens in the Selbu mitten club that Skeindeer has released. And these are like the very traditional Selbu rose or rose. So I live very close to the little village called Selbu here in Norway, and I've knitted Selbu mittens before, and I thought it was just appropriate to join in on such a nice mitten club. So these mittens are knit in DK wool non-superwash yarn. The grey color is Rauma 3-ply wool, and the bluish purple color is Kirkcaldy 3-ply bought from Malsen and Moor. Yeah, and they're knit on 4.0 millimeter needles, and they're a bit too large for me. I mean, I can wear them because they turned out quite large, and then I felted them slightly, just hand felting with some water and wool wash, and they shrunk some, and now they are more snug and fit my hands better. But I'm still not sure if I'm going to keep them myself or if they will be gifted to somebody with slightly larger hands than me. But yeah, I am very pleased with the result, and I think the pattern is very easy to follow, so if you are new to stranded color work, then I can highly recommend that pattern. They knit up quite fast as well. So yeah, finished pair of mittens. My third finished object this time is a pair of socks. And these are the blueberry waffle socks, patterned by Sandy Turner, and it's a very simple texture pattern that makes the sock knitting slightly more interesting than just plain stockinette knitting. The yarn I've used is the sock yarn from Countess Ablaze, and it is a beautiful colorway called Hey Boy, Hey Girl. And I put in a contrast heel and toe, and that is yarn from Woolmeise. They're twin base, and I think the color was something with lapis. It's a beautiful blue. The heels are knit after the sock is completed, so it's the Afterthought heel pattern, and that is a free pattern on Ravelry, and so are the blueberry waffles, I believe. And I really enjoy knitting Afterthought's heels, so that is something I will definitely continue doing. I have though added a couple of stockinette rows before I started the heel decreases according to the pattern, and that is because I have a quite a high instep, so I need the heels to be quite deep in order to fit my foot. And these are knits in, I believe the stitch count was 60 stitches, and there's a regular 2x2 ribbing on the top, and they're knit on 2.5mm needles. So very pleased with those, and I believe they are going into my gift box. Okay, those were the finished things. On to the works in progress. So my first work in progress this week is of course the next pair of Selbu mittens in the Selbu Mitten Club by Skeindeer Knits. And I have one mitten finished, and these are the Mebonden mitten. And that pattern was released on September 1st. And I have the rest of September to complete the second mitten. This is how far I am on mitten number 2. The yarn I'm using is the same grey as for the first mitten. This is the 3-ply strickegarn. That's just a regular non-superwash wool from Rauma. And I'm using a mustard yellow for the main color. The color number is 150 and the grey is 103. So you can see on the second mitten in the Selbu Mitten Club, the pattern is slightly different from the first one. But you can see they're related and they're really beautiful. I'm not sure if the contrast is high enough between the mustard yellow and the light grey. I should probably have used a white instead of a grey, but I think they're quite nice. And you can definitely see the pattern, so no problems with that. I made an error in the thumb increases. The increase of the pattern within the thumb decrease is not supposed to look like this. It's supposed to match up with the pattern on the thumb itself. But I didn't discover that I had made an error before I got to the actual thumb, so I didn't feel like ripping back and start over, so I just went with it. And frankly, no one will notice unless they know exactly how the mitten is supposed to look. So I just have to make sure that the second mitten is knit in the same way. So loving these. I am knitting this pair in 3.5mm needle instead of 4, in order to try and fit my hand a little better. I guess that I knit quite loosely, that's why the first pair got so big, but this is definitely snugger on my hand, and so far the fit is perfect. So yeah, and I am planning to knit all the pairs in the Selbu Mitten Club. There will be 3 more patterns out on October 1st, November 1st and December 1st. My second work in progress this time is my fall coat. So this is a leftover project that I am so pleased to have on the needles. The coat itself is something that I have been having in my knitting queue for quite some time. But I didn't feel like ordering new yarn for this project, as I already have so much nice Pickles yarns in my stash. So that is why this jacket is knit with some kind of, I don't know, fading effect or dip dyeing effect, as my daughter called it. So it is knit top down and it is knit out of 2 strands of yarn. I was cut off there. I'm sorry. I ran out of battery on my phone, so I have now switched to my camera, and hopefully that will stick with me until I'm done recording today. So I was telling you about the fall coat. I believe I told you that the yarn I'm using is 1 strand of silk mohair, and this is a silk mohair from Drops. I'm also using some scraps of silk mohair from Pickles. The other yarn is the merino tweed from Pickles, which have beautiful flexes of tweed in beautiful colors, and I love that. So it is knit top down, and since I have different scraps in different colors, I chose to start with the lighter colors and then knit gradually more turquoise and then more on the darker side on the bottom. with black and some deep purples. Since last time I knitted from this marker and down on the body, and this is a progress keeper from Marnie's, and I love her stuff. She makes beautiful progress keepers and dyes beautiful yarn. So I knitted a good 15 centimeters on the body, and I have completed both arms. And I wanted to finish off the arms before I finished the body, because I had to make sure that I had enough yarn in the correct colors to match up the arms. So here they are. I finished off the arms with a I-cord bind off, and I really like that finishing edge that the I-cord makes. Yeah, I really like it, and I'm looking forward to having this finished in a couple of weeks, hopefully. I have to add, I will guess, at least 20 centimeters on the length, because it's going to be a coat, so it needs to be quite long. My third work in progress is my stockinette project at the moment, and this is the Sockhead cowl. And it is a mindless, easy project, and it's very handy to have in my purse. So whenever I have the opportunity, I can knit a round or two on it. So this is what I was knitting at the cinema last weekend. And my progress since last time is from this marker and up. And this is a beautiful progress keeper that I have bought from Corner of Crafts. Isn't that sweet? The yarn I'm using is Tweedy Todd's BFL sock base. And I believe that this is kind of a self-striping yarn, or at least heavily pulling yarn. But when knit with 160 stitches in the round, it makes these cute little thin stripes, and I really like how the yarn and the colors are turning out. So the plan is to knit plain stockinettes until I have approximately 15 grams left of the ball, and then I will switch over to 2x2 ribbing again, and finished with 10 centimeters ribbings on the top, and then the cowl will be finished. Easy. My next whip is a sock. This is the first sock of a pair called Loser's Lurgy, and that is a pattern by Knottygnome Crafts, Sarah. She has released a sock club, and I believe there are 5 or 6 patterns in the club. This is the third one, and the club is called Magical Maladies. So this is the loser's lurgy, and I think that is kind of a melody from, is it Harry Potter? I'm not sure. She has talked about it on her podcast, the Knottygnome podcast, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already. So this is a textured pattern with a kind of a cabling going on both sides on the front of the sock, and some basket stitch in the middle. And I am knitting these out of Knit Picks Stroll Tweed in the Autumn Heather color. And I am using some contrasting cuffs, heels and toes in this beautiful yarn, which is from War Collection, their Tough Sock in Dried Roses. So I have knitted down to, I'm past the heel. I'm putting in Afterthought heel, as you can see. This is a scrap yarn for the heel. And I am halfway down on the foot. And the reason why I stopped here is because now I have to do some calculations to make sure that I end up with the pattern on the right place before the toe, because there are some changes in the pattern down to the toe. So yeah, they're quite fun, and the pattern is very easy to memorize. I think after one repeat of the pattern I can do the rest without looking at the pattern. So that is nice TV knitting as well. These are Addi Colibri needles in 2.25mm, and I quite like them. They are more pointy at one end and more blunt on the other, so you can kind of choose which one you prefer. And if you're curious, this is a needle cozy that I have sewn myself. I actually do some sewing now and then. More than now, I believe. I also have another sock whip, and this sock I have had on the needles for, I believe, 1 year, and I managed to finish it last week, and I actually cast on the other one. So hoping that the second sock is moving faster than the first one. It really should, because the yarn is a sport weight sock yarn, so they are knitting up quite fast. And this is, I call it a souvenir yarn. I bought it in Helsinki a couple of years ago. I really like to visit yarn shops when I am in new places, and if they have some local yarn that I have never seen or used before, I tend to buy some of it. And this is Finnish yarn, Novita Nalle Novita, and the color is 893. There, I mean, I really like the colors. I think they are absolutely sweet and very cheerful to have on the feet. But the yarn is extremely sturdy, so it is like 75% wool and 25% polyamide. And the wool is very rustic. And I have tried to wash this with some wool wash and in hope that the pair would soften up, but it hasn't at all. But that's okay. I wear socks. They don't need to be like extremely soft for me to wear them. So yeah, it's just a regular plain stockinette sock, and I did some slip stitch pattern on the heel. I haven't of course done any notes on the first sock, so I have to study it, I guess, in order to make the second sock identical. But no problem, I've done that before, so I know that it can be done without notes as well. So my last whip this time is my mother's peace sweater. I showed you the sweater and the yarn last time, and I didn't actually bring it down with me today, and so I can't show you, but I will put in a picture of my progress here so you can see. Well, I haven't done much, but I have done some, and the reason why I haven't done more is that I actually misplaced the pattern. So I have been looking and looking and looking for the pattern for several days, and finally I found it, and then I had to find time to sit down and work on it, and now I have. And I am planning now to set aside some time, couple of days every week to make some decent progress, and my goal is to finish both arms before Christmas, and I think that's achievable. As I have mentioned before, this sweater is heavily patterned, and it is stranded pattern with 2 colors all the way, and I have no deadline, and but I think I will, if I manage to finish it in the next year, I will be very satisfied. So the arms before Christmas, and then I will start tackling the body. Okay, so that was all that I have been working on the past 2 weeks. And now on to some knitting plans. My first knitting plan is my Halloween project. And last time I showed you the yarn that I'm planning to use. And this is beautiful yarn from Berenwolle. It's called Spooked, and this was their Halloween colorway last year. And I have caked up the yarn, so it's now ready to go. And I've been browsing for patterns on Ravelry. So I got one suggestion that I should make mitts with the yarn, and I really like that idea. And the more I thought of it, I really wanted to make some beautiful cabled mitts, because that is something that I really like to use during the colder days in the fall. And I found a beautiful pattern called Aegwynn. I believe that's how you pronounce it. and it's not that easy to see on this black-white copy of the pattern, but it got quite a broad cable on the top of the hand, and the rest of the mitt is knit in ribbing. I'm aiming to knit this pair of mitts. My only concern is that the pattern is in French. I have had only 1 year of French in school, and I can only like say hello and my name is Ina, je m'appelle Ina, and such. I can understand some words in the restaurant, and I can say I don't understand much in this pattern, unfortunately. So I need to like sit down and go through the pattern, and maybe I don't need to understand much. That is my hope, because I can extract how many stitches I'm supposed to cast on, and there's also a diagram for the pattern, the cable pattern. So, and I guess the rest I can figure out using Google Translates or something. So hopefully I will figure it out and cast on these mitts maybe within the next 2 weeks. I need to finish off at least 1 pair of socks before I cast them on. But yeah, I think they will be beautiful. My next knitting plan is Steven West's mystery knit along for this fall, and that is the Speckle and Pop mystery knit along. And I really enjoy knitting Steven West patterns. I have been partaking in 1 or 2 of his mystery knit alongs before. So I've found the 3 main colors that I will use for the shawl, and we are supposed to knit with 3 full skeins of sock weight yarn, or fingering weight yarn, and the colors should be related to each other in some like fading relationship from dark to bright. So I have chosen these 3, and I think that will work really well together. The first one is from Garnsur, and that is their Söcke Merino in Brattug. So beautiful. Second one is from Woolen Vine. This is her Volke base, and the color is Last Unicorn. And the third color I'm planning to use is from Marnis, and this is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon, and the color is called Ooh Ahoo. So very sweet. And these are the Speckles, I believe, and then there will be some pop as well, some contrasting colors. And I have not decided on the contrast, but I think that I will use some grays and some purples and some pinks. That is my plan. So I think that this combination will be quite nice. Oops. It's difficult to show you. But then you will have the greens and the mints and the pinks and the purples and the greys together. I think that will be very nice. So are you joining the mystery knit along as well? Please let me know if you are. So there are 2 podcasts that I would love to mention, and firstly I would like to recommend Wool and Cookies by the lovely Meg from US. And she has a sweet family, and she's doing a lot of knitting for her lovely kids and for herself. And she is using beautiful colors, and it's so inspiring to watch. And she's also including some recipes and cooking or baking recommendations. And this last episode she was showing off some lovely apple desserts, and they were just yummy. The other podcast I would like to recommend is a Finnish podcast by the sweet Anna-Pia, and she has the podcast Strickande Fru Svarvar. And the podcast language has been Swedish, but I believe she's now switching over to English. So, but anyway, you should just check out what she's making, because she is really productive, and she's knitting the most beautiful garments and socks, and she's also dyeing yarn, and that is something that I find very interesting, and I was now really tempted to try out dyeing myself after watching her latest podcast episode. So thank you both Meg and Anna-Pia for great inspiration. So this is all I had for you this time. I thank you so much for watching, and if you like what you saw, please like this video and hit the subscribe button if you would like a notification once a new episode is out. I hope that you have a wonderful September, and happy knitting! Bye bye!